Deconversion and Deconstruction from Religion, with a specific focus on his own former Christian faith. You also may have seen Brady on as a special guest on shows such as The Line. So please please join me in welcoming to the stage Mr. Brady Goodwin. Welcome, Brady.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask you about where you're from because I hear a very familiar accent. So, we're going to get right into it.
All
As we
right.
ask of all our guests, please share your story, your upbringing,
Hmm.
your journey and how you arrived at your non-religious identity.
Okay. Yeah. Once again, it's great to be here. So I hail from Philadelphia, specifically from South Philadelphia. Born and raised there, and then around somewhere in my teenage years, moved to the Logan only section, which we call Uptown in Philadelphia. Lived there my entire life, except for a short stint when I was in Bible college. I lived in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, but yeah, that's where I'm from. I always say I was raised in two places. I was raised in church and I was raised in the streets of Philly. So Monday through Friday, I'm in school and I'm on the block hanging out. And then Friday night was youth group, and Saturday was choir rehearsal, youth choir rehearsal. Sunday was church. And I was living those two different lives my entire, I guess, preteen and teenage life until around age 16, where I ended up reading the Bible for the first time on my own and taking it very seriously. So I read some things about just the nature of God that made me just consider who this being was that I had been hearing about. And I became a worshiper, became a follower, became a disciple, became a evangelist. I was still in high school at the time, and so I started sharing my faith in high school. Me and uh, one of my best friends at the time introduced me to another guy who would become my new best friend because he was like, "Hey, y'all are both religious. Y'all should meet each other." So, being this Italian kid named Tony Bruno, we met, became best friends, started a Bible study in high school. I remember arguing with people in the lunchroom, debating, trying to get people to believe in Jesus in the lunchroom at high school. This is 11th and 12th grade. And then somewhere in 11th, end of 11th grade, beginning of 12th grade, I started rapping. I started doing Christian rap because I met someone who was doing it, and it just seemed like such a great way to take this message that I was so excited about and get other people to hear this message. And started doing that. Didn't really know what was going to happen with it. Graduated high school. And at the time, it just really felt so organic. It felt like the God that I had been reading about and the things that I was reading about in the pages of the Bible basically had come to life. And there I was living it out in my inner city context. And so I didn't go to college. We started this thing called the Cross Movement. And it was a rap group, it was a nonprofit, it was a record label. And I spent the next 20 years of my life going around the world trying to be a representative of this God that I believe existed, that I believe had acted in history uh, in the person of Jesus Christ and through the nation of Israel. This God that I believe was coming back to claim his own people. And I was so excited to be one of those. And I wanted as many people as possible to be part of that group. And so I used all my time, all my talent, all my creativity, all my energy, um, finding ways to retell that message, be it through rap, be it through the written word. I wrote books. I even started designing curriculum that would allow me to sneak my faith into the school. So I wrote a whole curriculum called Hip Hop History and Ethics. That was my way just to talk sociology and philosophy in the public school setting and in secondary education and post-secondary education. I was working on that curriculum. I was taking it to market. I had even gone to seminary to better learn how to defend my faith, learning Hebrew and Greek and all that. And it was while I was in seminary preparing to further that career. I'd already had one career as a urban missionary, musical missionary. I was preparing for my second career in education, disguised as a teacher, but really just still doing urban missions, urban missionary work. And it was during my time in seminary that I started getting the hint that everything that I'd been taught was a lie. A former professor at the school had written a book about evolution called The Evolution of Adam. And I read the book. I tried to debunk the book. I actually did debunk, at least I thought at the time. But the book made me start asking questions about Genesis that I'd never really had good answers for. I thought later on I'd get answers. Later on, when I get to seminary, I'd get answers. And here I was in seminary and not getting answers, but developing more questions. And so that was 2014, 2015. I began to question everything. I began to see just how the chain of custody of the Bible, especially the New Testament, just all the different text and textual criticism issues that could change the way that we're reading the Bible. And my confidence in it just had become severely shaken, so that by the time I graduated seminary, with a Master of Arts in religion degree, I graduated and basically told God, like, yo, you got to do something, because I've seen enough that I could end my search now. Like, I don't think this is true. And so I took between 2015 to 2021, 6 years of, I don't even want to say I was necessarily seeking God during that time as much as I was testing it. I was putting my faith through all kinds of homemade, I see my camera froze. Okay, it's back. Let me switch cameras just in case. I was putting my faith through all kinds of homemade tests. You know, what happens if I don't pray? What happens if I start doing this? What happens if I don't read the Bible? What happens if does anything change? And realizing that nothing changed. Like, I could spend X amount of months not reading my Bible, X amount of time not praying, and the only thing that changed was what I knew internally. And so it wasn't until 2021 that I said, okay, enough of this. Let me do the research. Let me find out why. And I didn't know anything about Black non-believers. I didn't know anything about people like Matt Dillahunty. I didn't know anything about Paula Gia. Any of the people that actually became, it was confirmation. But I spent the year of 2021 buying every book that I could, from fundamentalist evangelicals, which I was, to progressive liberals, to non-believers. I bought so many books between 2021 and 2022, just trying to figure out what was real, what could I trust, and how was I going to determine what was true anymore, if not by the Bible's standards. And I think it was halfway through the year, I think maybe around May of 2021, I realized, oh, that's why. That's why nothing happened when I stopped praying. That's why nothing happened when I started living this way or stopped doing that, because this is not true. And it was a short walk from Christianity's not true to, oh, I think maybe even just the God idea in general. Like, it was an ancient hypothesis that never panned out. And I saw that what Christianity had done and what Judaism had done is what people all over the world had done. Basically, you're trying to make sense of your world. There are things that you know, there are things that you don't know. And in those unknowns, you're free to plug in all kinds of hypotheses, whether it be ancestors, whether it be aliens, whether it be gods, whether it be God. You're filling in this gap, this knowledge gap, with all these imaginings and guesstimations, and then you begin to tell stories and give backstories to the things that you've imagined, and before you know it, now you've got an entire mythos. And I just saw that this is what the human enterprise has been. And I said, okay, I'm not going to spend, I spent 30 years of my life chasing the Jesus myth. I'm not going to spend the next 30 chasing somebody else's myth. And so I changed my epistemology from tell me to show me. And if you can't show me, I'm free to hear you out and say that's a nice story. But until you can produce something with what you're telling me, and only the thing you're telling me can produce that, I call BS on it, and I'm free to leave it where it lies. And so that was me from 2021 on. I wrote a book called "Let There Be Gaslight," refuting all of the Christian scientists and Old Testament scholars and Hebrew scholars that I saw as, because I knew I was going to publicly deconvert. I had been too publicly as a believer to stay quiet. So I was going to publicly deconvert. But then I knew if I do that, my Christian community, they're going to say, oh, but did you read this book by? Did you read this book by? Did you read? And so I wrote the book that I wrote just to say, yes, I've read all of them. And here's why I don't believe them. And so that's been me since 2022, publicly, online. In the words of, I think it's John Lewis who talked about causing good trouble. I'm online just causing good trouble, asking people to ask better questions and challenging them to stop accepting poor answers to those good questions. And so I spend most of my time helping people through their deconversion, or at least deconstruction.
Awesome. So, yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experience. And before I get into more of the official questions that were sent to you prior to the show, how like how easy was it to get into the getting into the entertainment part of it, and was it modeled after maybe like Kurt Franklin, or were you already into was there like an easy pathway into getting into like the entertainment and the traveling because you were so gung-ho about your belief at the time?
No. So let me see. Kirk Franklin came out in, I guess, around what, 94 with Stomp. Um, so he
It's like
was he
96, 97
96,
ish.
97
Yeah.
was it? Wow. So our first album came out in 97, but we came together as a unit probably between 94 and 95, around there. So I remember being in somebody's apartment back when we used to get together, as my group used to get together. I remember when Kirk Franklin's song "Stomp" came out. No, not "Stomp." That was later. Before that, it was "Silver and Gold." The reason why we sing, Kirk Franklin and the Family album. Um, but no, I went there only because Kirk Franklin would not have been a blueprint, only because what he was doing was nowhere near what we were doing. What we were doing was so grassroots, so organic. We were fueled by several things, because we were not welcome in the church because we were so hip hop. We were not welcome in hip hop because we were so Christian. And so we really had to be our own community, our own fellowship, our own, like, we felt like the wind was always in our face, never at our back. But it also felt like we were very much, it felt like we were living out the pages in the book of Acts. And so it wasn't easy, but we saw ourselves as being countercultural in almost every aspect. We were countercultural in Christianity. We were countercultural in hip hop. We were countercultural in the industry because we were not seeking fame. We were not going to do the things that they said you needed to do to be successful. We weren't going to water down our message. We sounded like urban missionaries, preachers, apologists on the mic. And so no, nothing was easy, but we were sort of like we were kicking in the door, waving Psalm 44, as one Christian rapper used to say. And so every little success we got, whether we got our video played on BET, or whether we ended up in the Source magazine or Vibe, everything that happened, we felt like that was God miraculously moving on our behalf, because nothing in the industry was set up for what we were doing. And so, yeah, everything was very hard won, and God always got the glory, because how else could we have ended up on BET at that time?
Gotcha. So you are talking with a fellow hip hop head here, and
Okay.
from New York, from
Okay. Not bad
from
talk.
the New York tri-state area.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I one of my questions was was there always something, or at least a part of your deconversion, was what did the hip hop genre have any influence on your critical thought process? Because as you well know, especially being from Philly,
Hmm.
there is a there are there's definitely an influence in hip hop there. Did it have any influence on like your journey at all through becoming a Christian rapper and then becoming, and then deconverting?
Well, here's the influence that it did have. So, two, um, I only ever got good at rap because I had a message that I wanted to tell. I was horrible when I first started rapping, but because I was so enthralled with the message of the gospel, I said it deserves 100% of my effort to tell it as well as I can. So I got good at rap to tell a message, but I was influenced by the kind of rap that had a message. So not just conscious rap, but there's something about rap from the Northeast, this part of the country, that is very influenced by an educational lens. And I trace it back. I wrote a book years ago called The Death of Hip Hop, Marriage, and Morals. And I trace it back to, um, the divide between W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. And Du Bois always thought that there was a talented tenth of the Black population. If you look at the map back then, 10% of the Black population was in the North. And so I always got the impression that what he was saying without saying it was the Northern, in his vernacular, the Northern Negro was the talented tenth of the Black population. And so in his eyes, it was their job to teach the other 90% who was from the South. And he believed that their education had been retarded by things like slavery and Jim Crow and all that. So fast forward, when hip hop kicks off, it's not long before hip hop has its own North versus South war. And very much of the battle in hip hop's North versus South, it wasn't just y'all sound different, it was y'all sound uneducated. And it was that same 100-year battle between the North and the South of what's the best way to advance? Is it educating the mind or educating the hands of Black folk? And so, anyway, I say all that to say, I think hip hop from the Northeast always carried with it sort of this unspoken mandate of it's your job as the talented tenth to educate the rest. So this is why in the 60s and 70s, when the five percenters jumped off in New York, um, Clarence the 13X, when he came to New York, he found a ready-made army for his 5% message in hip hop. So many of the early hip hop, matter of fact, Talib Kweli says during the golden age of hip hop, you could not have been considered one of the greats unless you were a 5%er, unless you had that knowledge of self, unless you studied the 120 lessons and were able to kick knowledge. But when I became a Christian and then a Christian rapper, the Christian rap contingent had a war of words with all of the sort of the inner city urban cults, if I could even call them that, between the Hebrew Israelites, the five percenters, the Malachi York folk, the Nation of Islam. They were sort of all banding together, dissing us, the Christian guys, like, yo, why are you following that white man's religion? And here we came, these young, urban, Christ-centered rappers into hip-hop culture. And so all this is to answer the question. The way that it influenced me was I saw how knowledge-based Northeast hip-hop was. And we, in my group, we tried to battle the Black man is God ideology of the 5% faction of hip-hop with our Jesus is God ideology. But because they seemed like they knew their stuff, we had to know our stuff. So a lot of my wanting to know Hebrew and Greek and all that was so that I could perform better when battling all these urban cults trying to tell me, how much that Christianity was the white man's religion. So it made me, I don't even know that it was Christianity that made me such a good student. I think it was hip hop's focus on knowledge that made me want to know more. But it didn't lead to deconstruction. It led to me being a more informed Christian, if that makes sense.
Excuse me. Sorry, I just needed to unmute.
Mhm.
It does. And I find it, as having been raised in the Black conscious community, growing up with KRS-One, Brand Nubian,
Yep.
and all
Yep.
of the, Public Enemy,
Yep.
as well as the other, factions of hip hop. One of my favorites was always Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince from Philly, and
Yeah.
so yes, and it's also interesting that you mentioned W.E.B. Du Bois, who
Mhm.
had that back and forth with Booker T. Washington,
Mhm.
as far as like with the Talented Tenth, and then Booker T. Washington with his own brand of, how blacks can succeed, but
Yep.
from a different framework. And I find it very interesting, for the people who didn't know that W.E.B. Du Bois was vehemently against Marcus Garvey at the time. But then he migrated. He ended up settling in Ghana, where he became a Pan-Africanist.
Mm.
So he went through his own sort
Yeah.
of conversion and
Mm.
deconversion, so to speak. And so it's just when people, there's so much in our history
Yep.
that that I've often found that even Christians may disavow. Now, I grew up
Mm.
with some Christians who were a bit more knowledgeable, but then you also had, I'm sure you saw your more fundamental types who didn't care about any of that stuff. All they cared about was serving the word of God, right?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I love hearing your story about, I love hearing your experience about combating the more conscious or Afrocentric rappers,
Mm.
with the Jesus message, and that can also play into
Yeah.
the psychosis of white Jesus that so many
Mm.
of us were indoctrinated with. So, oh
Mm.
my gosh, yes. So, talking about all of this is just absolutely fantastic. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I really, really, I really, really appreciate you. It takes me back. It
Mm.
takes me back to what I grew up with, and these are the types of
Yeah.
conversations and discussions that I think are important for us to have. And so from there, I'd like to ask, why is it important for you to focus on the deconstruction aspect for other, especially for other Black folks, right?
Yeah.
Why has it become so important to help deconstruct from religion? How can we, especially now that that there's a Black non-believers, we've been around since 2011, we've been in
Mm.
these streets, so to speak, and so have other people. How can we work together collectively in order to move and advance people forward?
Yeah, great questions. Why is it important to focus on deconstruction? So I didn't think about this when I was doing it. I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't know that I knew that I was deconverting. I didn't know that there would be a need to deconstruct. Matter of fact, I deconverted and then deconstruct. A lot of people deconstruct and they get to a point where they realize, wait, I don't think I believe anything in this book anymore. I deconverted first. I knew that I could not follow religion as a way to, or faith as a guide to truth. But then once I was fully deconverted and I came out, I it's so funny because like I said, while I was going through it, I didn't do this. But once I came out, it's almost like all the thoughts in my head were still Christian thoughts. Even though I didn't believe them, I had spent 40 plus years of my life learning how to think Christianly. There's a verse in the Bible that says, take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. I had perfected that. I had created this persona in my mind where, we have this monologue, and some people, because of how helpful it might be, they turn their inner monologue into a dialogue and they're having a conversation with themselves. Well, what religion often teaches you to do is to disassociate and to personify that other voice in your head that it's your voice, but you personify it and you turn it into an other, and you name that other, and that other becomes God or the Holy Spirit or Jesus or whoever. So I've trained myself for 4 decades to think about this voice in my head and name it not me, and then let that voice tell me things about myself that were damaging, that I'm a sinner, that no good thing dwells within me, that I can't do anything that's going to matter, and all these destructive ideas. Um, whether it be how to deal with anger, what deserves my anger, whether it's even okay to be angry, right? Be angry, but don't sin. Okay, well, what does that mean? How I deal with money, how I deal with sex, how I deal with my romantic interests, how I deal with family, how I spend my time. I had trained myself to think in all these Christianly ways for decades. And even though I had deconverted, I realized that I would think a thought and then I would have to unthink it. And then sometimes it would take work to unthink that thought. Why is that not a good way to deal with that issue anymore? Health issues that I used to think I needed God to get over, things that I had actually, so it's hard to even use to talk about it without using that terminology anymore, but things that I had found treatments for. But as a Christian, I would not have used the word treatment. I would have said things that I had been healed from. And now I've got to rethink about how to talk about that. So, anyway, all this is just to say the deconstruction process is necessary, because if you don't believe in these things anymore, but you're still thinking in those ways, you're still processing the world in religious ways, you're actually making your life harder than it needs to be. And the kind of beings that we are, most living things want to try to conserve energy. It could be anything from, hey, work smarter, not harder. There's a quicker or easier way to do that so that you don't use as much energy, to creating nicknames for people, shortening, you shorten words, you make them easier to say, because if I could save time and energy, life is all about conserving that energy. Well, if I'm going through 4 or 5 steps in my mind and there are religious steps to get to this end, if I could cut out 3 or 4 of those steps and just do it in 1 or 2, well, I'm doing what these kinds of beings like to do. We like to conserve energy. We like to find better, more efficient ways to do things. It helps to even prolong our lives if we could spend less energy doing certain things and pour that energy into other things. So I think it's just part of being a human being, and it's part of being a better human being to help other people figure out you don't need to be doing that anymore. You don't need to spend 3 hours or even a half hour, 3 minutes in prayer to do X, Y, Z when all you're really trying to do is make a decision. So that's the base level of why deconstruction matters. But then on top of that, I realized when I look back how dark and how lonely it was for me to go through the deconstruction process or the deconversion process, not knowing about Black non-believers, not knowing about the whole entire online, the panoply of online skeptics. And so I did it all on my own. And it was depressing. It was dark. It was lonely. And once I came out, I said, man, because here's what I saw. For me, the thing that kicked it off was evolution. Once I saw that there was evidence for evolution and that Christians were being obscurantist and helping people to not see that evidence, I said, one, I'm going to make it so that it's not so easy for the Christian apologists to lie to people. But two, I don't want anybody else to go through 6 years of loneliness like I went through. And so even if I end up being a pariah, even if I end up being, disowned or abandoned, or I got people in my inbox, sending me to hell every day, I'm going to remain vocal. One is kind of like a penance for me, like all the people I led into Christianity. I'm going to remain vocal for you to let you know I was wrong. But two, and I get these messages all the time, if there's anybody out there who feels like I can't deconvert because then it'd just be me, I want you to realize, no, it's not just you. You're not alone. You're not crazy. People who are There are people who are going through in their mind feeling like they're losing their mind because the way that they thought the world works, they're realizing I don't think it works that way. But if it's just my mind saying that this can't be true, or that the Bible's not trustworthy, or I don't think that had to be God, that could have been chance or coincidence, or there could have been some naturalistic explanation. You're thinking these things, but you think you're crazy because you don't hear anyone else saying it. Anyone else that you respect, anyone else that you know, anyone else that you would count them as, oh wait, he's saying it too. So it's not just okay. And so this is a very long answer to just say, I think this is humanism at play. For me to have deconstructed and deconverted, and then to be able to be available for other people to help them realize you're not losing your mind, you're not becoming worse, you're becoming better. This is the more humane way to live. This is the more efficient way to spend your time and your energy. Um, and it's interesting because even the question that you asked, I think, is it specifically important that Black people do it? I think it's specifically important that humans do it. I think you human better when you stop going to myth and mythology, when you stop using faith as your epistemology. I just think we get further as a species that way. But then, yes, it does become important to me for Black people to have these conversations because of where African Americans fall on the socioeconomic spectrum in this country. The people who are among the most financially or economically or socially um, oppressed, or you lack the opportunity, you're going to call out for and lean on whatever kind of helps you can find. And if you are prone to superstitious thinking, as many of us are, and someone tells you, hey, here's how I got over, I prayed, here's how I got help, this community of believers, they helped me understand this. I think the more downtrodden you are, or you see yourself as, or you feel, the more prone you're going to be to reach outside of the natural realm for some supernatural help, not realizing that by relying on this supernatural help, you're not utilizing all the natural means that are at your fingertips, whether it be building better community, whether it be um, starting businesses in your community, whether it be they're just things that you could actually do, that because you're being taught to look at your flesh and your humanity as the problem, and look at this supernatural being as the solution, you really are not helping yourself the way that you could be and probably should be. And so for that reason alone, I think it behooves me to talk to other Black folk. That's why I always tell, when I do this thing on my channel called Life After Faith, where I let people come on to tell their deconversion stories, much like I just did. And I often say to folks, especially African Americans who come on, consider starting a channel, because you go to the online skeptic space and you see a lot of white folk in that space owning it, and very few Black and brown people in that space. I said they need to see more of us. And when I say they, I'm talking about Black people need to see more Black and brown faces having the courage to stand up and say, I don't want to lose my community, but I don't believe that anymore. And look, guess what? I'm still here. Lightning didn't strike me down. I haven't tithed in 3 years. And guess what? The locust didn't come and eat up my finances. Like, Black people need to see other Black people standing up and saying these things.
Yeah, you are. I'm sitting up here like, word, like facts.
Mm,
Um, but I also wanted, as a follow up to, and this will be the final question. So many, just like you said that you didn't know that there were other Black folks who had done this, and who were in this space. Do you find that in your deconstruction process, that oftentimes, and this is especially true for Black folks, that we have been so conditioned into belief that we
mm,
don't readily, like, look for for other resources first? Do you find that we are so
mm.
entrenched in, in that indoctrination, and feeling like we're alone, that
Yeah.
it doesn't even occur to us that there may be others, especially with the deep and institutional conditioning, because there have always been folks who question, but the
Mhm.
problem is, with especially with many black folks, African Americans in our communities, because we have been so many have been so deeply conditioned to believe that it's almost even, you almost can't even fathom that there could be someone else.
Well, you know what? As much as I used to love W.E.B. Du Bois, at some point I began to see the critique of the elitism. The it's just me, or it's only a few of us, or even looking at the Southern approach as if there isn't merit or validity in that approach. Um, and so I think about when I was in seminary, I saw, like, I was one of very few. I think there may have only been one or two other African American students at the seminary that I went to. There were more African students, but not African American students. And I think there is something in the African American experience where you are kind of bred to feel like you have to do everything yourself and for yourself, and that there isn't anyone else on your level, on your plane. And so I remember being in one of my classes and I missed a day of class. And so I asked one of the Asian students, there was a Korean student, I asked them if they had the notes. And then I forget what the process was, but they turned me on to the community. And granted, the seminary that I went to, I think it was like 65% Korean, and then the other like 20% was white, and then the rest was a mixture of maybe a few African American and others. But these Korean students, the way that they would look up to take notes, I had no idea. It's almost like if you could go down into a ant hill and see the way the ants are working. You're like, yo, what the hell? Like, all of y'all are working together to do this amazing thing underground. So it's like, in this little community, it's like 6 students in the class, and they said, yo, we all share a Google document. She takes notes about history. He takes notes whenever the professor talks about theology. This one over here takes notes on vocabulary, and they're all like contributing into this same Google Doc. And before you know it, because the notes were so pristine and so organized, I'm like, how are you doing this? And the student that I was saying, oh, I didn't do it myself. We take notes together. And I said, damn, that's so counter intuitive to me. And this is, I'm just telling on myself here. There was another African American student in the class, and subconsciously, I looked at that other African American student as my competition in the class, not as somebody that I needed to cooperate with. There's only 2 African American students in this class. I got to be the one that gets the better grades. And it really was on some pick me type energy. Like, if I get better grades than that, as if there was somebody looking at the only 2 African American students in this class of 60 people, trying to figure out which one is the good one. And I think that that has somehow been bred into, and this goes back to the days of slavery. This goes back to the things that happen. You talk about the house Negro versus the field Negro, and you know, all that to say, uh, yes, I do think that there is a psychosis there that says, or there's some kind of, um, I don't know, there is something within the thinking that says, rather than working together to cooperate, there's going to be competition, and it's just me. It can't be we. And so I don't know if I've answered your question or not, but it just triggered all those memories in me. Can't hear you. I still can't hear you. Maybe the chat can, but I can't. You can hear me? I can see your lips moving, but I can't hear you. Chat, can you guys hear Mandisa?
Okay, here we go.
Cool.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm back now, folks. So, what I was saying was that there are a number of people. Okay, I see the comments that y'all should be able to. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yay. So, I think there are a lot of us who, in that deconstruction process, and I consider myself fortunate that I was raised in that Black conscious and what Black unity should be,
Mm.
while also recognizing that there's some folks who ain't gonna make it, but
Mm.
to always try to put us first as much as possible.
Mm.
And not everyone has had that because of the institutional factors of racism. The
Mm.
indoctrination of religion in our communities has really subconsciously made us, anti-Black, anti-LGBTQ, anti-women.
Yeah.
These are the
Yep.
things that we do need to deconstruct from as a community, because
Yeah.
whether we realize it or not, many of us may be still we are implementing white supremacy without realizing it. And
Mm.
so what you said was very, very powerful in the things that you in not really trusting your Black classmates, or feeling
Yeah.
like they were competition, or
Yep.
perhaps they were going to do something better than you, and not really taking that, um that that approach to working together.
Mm.
That has been historically damaging to our communities.
Yeah.
And so now people didn't have to hold other folks didn't have to hold us back. It was to the point where we do it to ourselves. And so
Yep.
recognizing that,
Yep.
recognizing where we can work through any type of discourse or any type of dissent, and make sure that there are many more organizations, many more content creators. And this is what we try to do here. This is what we
Yeah.
like to do at Black Nonbelievers, is to try to, we highlight the voices of primarily Black non-religious people, while also
Mm.
holding our allies in high regard. But also definitely empowering. We are a women-led organization. We
That's
are a
right.
woman-empowered organization. We are not going to apologize for that, but we want to make sure that we are all working, together. So I think that is a huge part of the deconstruction.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you sharing that, because that's honest.
Mm.
It's honest, and it's an ongoing, and indoctrination isn't always religious. It's also societal.
Mm.
It's familial. It's a lot of things that many of us need to deconstruct from. So I really do appreciate the way you talked about your deconversion from your deconstruction from Christianity, and also how the other societal factors played into it.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and I'm really, really glad that you are doing what you do, and continuing to raise that visibility, continuing to provide that support for people who need it. And there's different ways that we can do it.
Yeah.
So, and working together. So I really appreciate you being on the show today.
Yes, sir.
Tell
Thanks for
folks,
having me.
tell folks about your channel, where folks can find you on socials and on YouTube.
Yep. So I cause most of the trouble that I cause is on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, I know that's like the old head platform, but I like Facebook more than any of the other platforms because most people use their real names, and I want to know who I'm arguing with. I can't be arguing with Snap Fingers 24. Like I don't know who you are, but I'm on Facebook. I'm always posting. Back when I was a Christian, you had your daily devotions. Well, now I'm devoted to humanity. So every morning I wake up and I try to post a thought that will get somebody thinking. And I get a lot of Christians who, will tell me like, hey man, I don't agree with you on everything, but I've thought that thought. Or since you said that, I've been thinking about that. So Facebook at Brady Fanatic, Phanotik, Goodwin. That's me on Facebook. When I was a Christian rapper, I was known as Fanatic. So now it's Fanatic. I just started getting busy on TikTok. So I try to post on TikTok at least every day or every other day, post a little short something. on TikTok, it's Fanatic. So PHANATIKTOK. And then on YouTube at Ichabod. I do a Thursday night show, try to make it live every Thursday at 8 p.m. And then Mondays and Tuesdays at 1 p.m. I jump on and deconstruct my old Christian rap lyrics and talk about current events or react to videos that people send me like, yo, you got to check this video out. I'll react to it. That's pretty much primarily where you can catch me at. And my book, Let There Be Gaslight, is out there. I don't know if you guys can see it because of the light, but it's out there. So, yeah.
Nice. Thank you so much, Brady. We hope to have, we want to have you back on the show. Hopefully, you know, we'd love to have you on the live stream next week as well, if you have time and can make it, and to help support and help the work that Black Nonbelievers does. So we will definitely be in touch. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you. Till next.
Awesome. And thank you to everyone who tuned in to watch Brady on ITC. Thank you to all of our regulars who tune in. I'd like to read 2 super chats that we got. The first one is from Slick and Slacious. He sent the super sticker. Thank you very much for the support. And also Amateur Overlord. Thank you so much for the $4.99 super chat. Slick and Slacious was $19.99. And yes, we do need more of these types of conversations. And this is what we do here at Black Nonbelievers. Check out Brady at his channel. The link is in the chat. So thank you very much for tuning in. And so from here, it's time to announce our upcoming events. Immediately after this broadcast, we will be hosting the Deconstruction While Black hybrid event starting at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 Central. It will be in person in Chicago at the Hedgewish Public Library. Cynthia McDonald and our Chi-Town affiliate will be hosting that in person. And you can still sign up via Zoom. You can join us there. Of course, it's free to attend. We just want you to, make sure that you register in advance. We're looking forward to having you for this more in-depth discussion. And that's taking place in less than a half an hour. Also on Sunday, May 25th, before our live stream fundraiser, join Kelly in Detroit for brunch in Detroit. It's the Brunch and Handlebar outing. Please join them in Detroit for some in-person. It's at the Detroit Shipping Company starting at 12:15 Eastern. Remember that at Black Nonbelievers, we very, very much advocate for in-person engagement in addition to virtual, because we want to meet people face to face, which is why we do so many in-person events. And then afterwards, from 2 to 6 p.m., join us for our live stream fundraiser right here on YouTube, on our channel, as well as Skeptic Haven. Shout out to the Afro-Atheist, Esther. It is great to see you again. Appreciate you. Thank you for coming. Our special guests for the live stream fundraiser will be Chris Cameron, Professor Dave, Candace Gorham, Nikki G, Jay Bundy, the Kentucky Atheist, Michael Beverly, who was in the chat, and more. It will be hosted by Cynthia McDonald and myself. So please do join us for the live stream. There is also a link where you can start to donate in advance to help us reach our goal. So please do tune in next week. We're going to have a fantastic live stream, and we hope that you will join us. Also, the secular student scholarships are back. In addition to all of the other scholarships that are offered with the Secular Student Alliance, BN is co-sponsoring the Zora Neale Hurston Scholarship for Black non-religious students. All scholarships are available to full-time students enrolled in high school, college, a trade school, or university in the United States, and they support students who are, in addition to pursuing academic excellence, are also activists for secular values on their campuses and in their communities. The applications are open now through July 31st. So if you are a student or you know of students, please visit the website for secularstudents.org/scholarships. There is money for your education out there, and we are proud to support that. And we hope that you will support us in supporting that. Also, look for us to be tabling at the American Humanist Association's conference, which is at the end of June. Cynthia is one of the speakers. Also at the Ark Encounter protest, where I will be speaking and BN will be tabling. The Secular Student Alliance's conference will be tabling there. And NanoCon, the Nashville Nuns Convention, where Godless Gospel will be performing. And speaking of Godless Gospel, if you are a singer, particularly if you are an alto or tenor, we are still looking for singers for the Godless Gospel Ensemble, which is a production of the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Please do submit your audition. This is a paid opportunity. We want you to sing some fantastic music with us that is gospel without God. So you want to come to many of our events where we will be singing Godless Gospel, myself, Cynthia, Candace Gorham, and others. Shout out to everyone who was a part of the Godless Gospel Ensemble. And BNC-Con is back. Join us in November, from November 1st through the 9th, on the Carnival Horizon, which boasts an IMAX theater, 12 plus dining options, a sky ride, and more. We will be sailing out of Miami, Florida, and our ports of call this year are Ocho Rios, Jamaica, Grand Cayman Island, and Cozumel, Mexico. You can still book your deposit at a very low rate. Please do join us. Some of our guest speakers will be Jeremiah Kamara, Leo Igwe, Jasmine Banks, Candace Gorham, Cynthia McDonald, yours truly, and more. So please do join us for BNC-Con. It's always a fantastic event. We have fun. We educate you. You will learn things. You will feel supported as a community. So yes, please do sign up for BNC-Con and join us in November. Also, we invite you to become an official member of BN. Membership includes discounts to all of our ticketed events, the ability to vote for board members and also run for office positions, as well as get exclusive information about what is going on at Black Nonbelievers. You can sign up for your annual membership, and we also have a lifetime membership available. They start as low as $20 a year for students and seniors. So please do show your support and become an official member of Black Nonbelievers. Also, we encourage you to continuously donate to Black Nonbelievers. We always need your financial support for the important work that we do. You can make your donations recurring monthly, or you can do one-time donations. We are available on Cash App. You can Zelle us. You can donate through ActBlue. You can donate through PayPal. And again, you can start to donate through the Spring Live stream to get our fundraiser kicked off. So get it kickstarted. So please do support our work with a financial donation. And even more, you can get your BN swag. You see me wearing one of our lovely BN t-shirts. We have hoodies, shirts, mugs, shot glasses, koozies. We have bumper stickers and mugs and much, much more. So please do get your swag. You can go to our online store to purchase your BN and rep your squad, rep your set. Rep your being clicked. So thank you very much again. And finally, if you're looking for a gift to give at any given time of the year, pick up your copy of Name Dropping, which is the frustratingly fun movie trivia card game, which is created by BN board member Deanna Williams and her best friend Jesus Reyna. You can get that at namedroppinggame.com. And there is more development in the works about name dropping and where it will be available. So please stay tuned for that. This wraps up our episode of In the Cut. We hope you enjoyed it. Brady was so fantastic, and thank you to everyone who enjoyed him. We sure did. As a reminder, we air every first and third Saturday of each month. Please like this video and spread the word. You can follow us on social media. We are on Facebook at Black Nonbelievers, Instagram at B Nonbelievers Inc. We are still on X at B Nonbelievers, the B and the N are capitalized. You can find us at Blue Sky at benonbelieversinc.bluesky.social. And of course, we are here on YouTube at Black Nonbelievers Inc. Remember, our channel is now monetized, so you can send us a super chat. Subscribe to our channel. Please do find your local BN affiliate. Speaking of Philadelphia, we do have an affiliate there, and we are looking for organizers to help us run it and get things going, meeting in person and engaging. So you can find us in Atlanta, Detroit, Chicago, Philadelphia, Charlotte. We still have a group in Richmond, Virginia, and Columbus, Ohio. If you would like to help us organize and lead, we need you. So please do sign up to volunteer and become a part of our leadership team at Black Nonbelievers. And again, we always encourage you to donate and support our work. So take care. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Join us in a few minutes for our deconstruction while Black discussion. And we will see y'all next time live